Greetings and salutations, friends and gamers of all stripes. My name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and welcome to RPG A Day 2021, Day 10, where I currently have my old cat pacing back and forth in front of my screen and my face looking for snuggles and boops. So you may hear an occasional interjection from her. But on to the topic at hand. Today we are going to be discussing the prompt Wilderness. And there she is. Hello, Nikki. So when I think of wilderness, there's two main things that come to mind. Well, really three main things. The first of them, of course, is travel. Travel is something that you're going to experience to some degree in every tabletop role-playing game. Some will experience it more than others. Some will include it mechanically more than others, but it's in all of them as you journey from place to place. You, of course, have the threat of running into dangerous monsters, finding secrets, so on and so forth. And travel is something that I considered taking an approach on with this, but really, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other videos out there that are going to touch on that subject. And there were two other things that I was a little bit more interested in. One of those is the inherent danger that comes with being in the wilderness. Nikki, you klutz. The inherent danger that comes with living, and journeying rather, in the wilderness. The wilderness, particularly in the fantasy settings that most of the tabletop games that we play take place in, fantasy is a much bigger seller than sci-fi in this hobby. That's why I haven't touched really on sci-fi at all. The wilderness in these fantastical settings are home to a myriad of hidden dangers. Everything ranging from dangerous creatures, be they creatures that are more mundane, like dangerous wild animals, to creatures that are more fantastical, like the various monsters you might run into, be they creatures that are more mystical and magical, like dragons and dryads and elementals, things like that, to creatures that are just a little bit more generically, or not really generically, but generally monstrous. They don't have that magic element to them, but they are monstrous, dangerous things, such as, ogres, giant insects, or carnivorous plants. These are all the kind of things that we utilize quite frequently when we're dealing with the wilderness in these kinds of games. Dangerous monsters and the like are par for the course. It's easy to set something like that up, but there are other dangerous elements that have a tendency to get more overlooked, oftentimes either because the mechanics just don't really hold up for an extended period of time, such as in D&D's case, mechanics like exhaustion and the different weather effects. They don't tend to hold up past early levels. So oftentimes either the mechanics just don't tend to hold up for an extended period, or it's just details that we tend to overlook. We have a tendency to focus more on monsters and that sort of thing, and let the more natural dangers fall to the wayside. Dangers like inclement weather, or just simply getting lost and having to forage to survive. But the other thing that I think about when it comes to the wilderness is the sense of mystery and wonder that tends to be in there. Over my years in this hobby, one big change that I have noticed is a move away from things like dungeons and underground layers, all that sort of thing that used to be really the mainstay of how we would interact with these games. Dungeons and Dragons was called Dungeons and Dragons for a reason. The idea behind it was, in part, you as adventurers were dungeon delvers. You were delving into mysterious underground fortresses or mysterious strange mazes, underground dungeons, the kind of things that we know all too well. But recent years have seen a shift away from the dungeon delving aspect of these games. Not entirely, of course, but there is more favoritism now towards exploring the wilderness, exploring the forest, exploring the wilds, and finding what secrets are out there. Secrets that sometimes will include, yes, dungeons. But the wilderness in and of itself has almost become a style of dungeon in its own right, one that has a feeling of being more open and a little bit more accessible, one that has a feeling of really just general exploration that feels less claustrophobic, let's say. And with this new focus on the more, let's call it an open world feel, comes a whole new set of dangers and challenges for the players and for game masters as well. Because one big difference about the wilderness, one big challenge game masters must face with an open area like the wilderness, even if it's not really open because we still have to control what's in there. And this is an important point here. We have to control what is in there. So one of the challenges that comes with that is making it feel like it's open. It's a place the players can explore. It's a place the players can engage in that feels big and expansive, because the wilderness is big and expansive, but feels populated as well. It is very easy to make the wilderness feel extremely empty in a way that a dungeon that feels a little more empty, well, that doesn't hurt quite so much, because you're going from room to room. You're moving from set location to set location, whereas with the wilderness, there's a feeling of broad, open connectedness. The forest, no matter what portion of it you're in, is still going to feel like the forest until you find something that really stands out within it. A dungeon, where you're traveling from hall to hall, room to room, you don't really have quite as much of that particular problem. But if you can achieve that open but populated feeling with your wilderness, the wilderness can then become an incredible place for the players to explore. And because of that, I can really sort of see why it's become more popular these days. It's a challenge to get that feeling right, but when you do, it's very satisfying. And that's all I have for you today, friends and gamers of all stripes. As usual, if you liked the video, please leave a like, comment down below with your thoughts, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and open up the description box to follow me on social media. Minds.com is in particular the best place to follow me, as it is where I back up all of my content. Furthermore, while you're down there, you're also going to find a Webtoons link to my comic Phoenix Rising, a fantasy adventure webcomic that my friend Hair Illustrations and I post monthly. If the idea of a classic fantasy adventure with a touch of intrigue and comedy and a good amount of heart is appealing to you, then I highly recommend giving Phoenix Rising a try, as I am very confident you're going to find something in there to enjoy. And with all of this now said and done, friends and gamers of all stripes, as usual, my name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and remember, in the world of tabletop games, you don't want to just sit back and watch, but get in there and game. Have a good one.